The invitation had arrived 3 weeks earlier in a thick ivory envelope, with gold lettering so expensive it practically screamed money. When I opened it, I honestly thought it was a joke. Vanessa Carter and Marcus Reynolds request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony. My ex-wife was getting married, and somehow I was on the guest list. For a long moment, I stared at the card while sitting alone at my kitchen table. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. After everything she had done, after everything she had taken from me, after spending 2 years trying to convince the world that I was a terrible father, she wanted me sitting in the audience on the happiest day of her life. At least that was the official reason. The real reason became clear 3 days later. My phone rang while I was helping my son with his homework. The caller ID showed Vanessa. I almost ignored it. Almost. Instead, I answered. "What do you want?" Her voice dripped with satisfaction. "I just wanted to make sure you got the invitation." I leaned back in my chair. "I got it." "Good." There was a pause. Then she laughed. The same laugh that used to make my heart race. The same laugh that eventually taught me what betrayal sounded like. "You should come." Why? Because it would mean so much to the kids. The lie was so obvious it was insulting. The kids aren't even invited. Another pause. Then her tone changed. "You know what, Ethan?" There it was. The real Vanessa. Cold. Sharp. Cruel. "I think it would be good for you." Good for me? Seeing what moving on looks like, I almost smiled. Almost. Instead, I listened. "You spent years holding me back," she continued. "Now you'll get to watch me marry a real man." The words hung in the air. My son looked up from his notebook. I forced a smile and motioned for him to continue working. Vanessa kept talking. "Marcus is successful. Marcus is respected. Marcus actually knows how to provide." I remained silent. That seemed to irritate her. "You still there?" "Yeah." "Then say something." I looked at my son, then at my daughter coloring quietly across the table. The two people who mattered most in my world. "No," I said calmly. Calmer. "No, what?" "No, I don't think I need to say anything." I hung up. For several seconds I stared at the phone. Then I returned to helping my son solve fractions. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the wedding, because of the memories, because 12 years earlier, Vanessa and I had started with nothing. Absolutely nothing. We met during our final year of college. She worked evenings at a bookstore. I worked nights unloading trucks. Neither of us had money. Neither of us had connections. Neither of us came from wealthy families. What we had was ambition. And each other. Or at least I thought we did. The first apartment we rented was so small that the kitchen practically sat inside the living room. When it rained, water leaked through the ceiling. When winter came, the heater barely worked. But we were happy. At least I was. Every morning, Vanessa would leave little notes in my lunchbox. Every night. We'd sit on the floor eating takeout because we couldn't afford furniture. We talked about dreams, children, houses, retirement, freedom, a future together. I believed every word. When our first child was born, I worked 2 jobs. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. I missed parties, missed vacations, missed countless hours of sleep. But every sacrifice felt worth it. Because I thought we were building something together. Something permanent. Something real. Years passed. My career improved. Her career improved. We bought a house. Then a bigger house. Then another investment property. Money stopped being a problem. That's when the problems actually started. Success changed Vanessa. Or maybe it revealed who she truly was. The woman who once celebrated every small victory suddenly became obsessed with appearances. She cared about luxury brands, social status, expensive vacations, people's opinions. Everything became a competition. Bigger homes, better cars, more expensive schools. I noticed it gradually, like watching a crack spread through glass. Slowly, silently, until one day the entire thing shattered. The first time I suspected something was wrong, she came home at nearly midnight. She claimed she was working late. Then she started working late more often. Business trips increased. Phone calls became secretive. Passwords changed. Conversations became shorter. Distance grew. One night I asked her directly, "Is there someone else?" She looked me straight in the eyes and lied. No. I wanted to believe her, so I did. That was my mistake. 3 months later, I discovered the truth. Not because she confessed, because she got careless. A message appeared on her tablet. Just one message, one sentence. I still remember every word. I can't stop thinking about last night. The sender wasn't me. The world stopped. The room spun. My hands shook. And in that moment, 12 years of trust died. The divorce was brutal. Not because the marriage ended. Because Vanessa decided she needed a villain. And she chose me. Suddenly, mutual friends stopped calling. Neighbors acted differently. Parents at school avoided eye contact. Rumors spread. Whispers followed. According to Vanessa, I was controlling, manipulative, emotionally abusive, a terrible father. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter. Narratives did, and she controlled the narrative for a while. The custody battle became a war, not a legal process. A war! Every hearing felt like stepping into a battlefield. Every accusation felt like a knife. Every lie forced me to defend my existence. The worst part wasn't what she said about me. It was what she said in front of our children. I saw confusion in their eyes. Pain. Fear. Questions they were too young to ask. That nearly broke me. Nearly, but not completely. Because, while Vanessa was busy performing for the world, I was paying attention. Watching. Listening. Documenting. Quietly gathering pieces of a puzzle. And eventually, those pieces began forming a picture she never expected anyone to see. A picture capable of changing everything. A picture hidden inside a simple brown envelope. The same brown envelope sitting on my kitchen counter now. Waiting. Silent. Patient. Just like me. 3 weeks later, I arrived at the wedding. The venue looked like something from a celebrity magazine. White roses. Crystal decorations. Luxury cars. Perfect weather. Perfect guests. Perfect image. Exactly the kind of wedding Vanessa had always dreamed about. As I stepped out of my car, heads immediately turned. Whispers spread through the crowd. People recognized me. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked curious. A few looked disappointed, as if they had expected a broken man. Instead, they saw someone calm, someone composed, someone carrying a brown envelope beneath his arm. I walked toward the ceremony area. The sunlight illuminated the rows of white chairs. The floral arch stood at the center. Hundreds of guests filled the seats. Then I saw her, Vanessa, standing near the aisle in a stunning white dress, laughing, smiling, radiating confidence. For a moment our eyes met, and I saw it. Satisfaction. She was happy I came, not because she wanted peace, because she wanted an audience, a public humiliation, a final victory. She raised her champagne glass slightly in my direction, then smiled, the kind of smile that said, "Watch this." I took my seat, waited, and listened. The ceremony began. Everything unfolded exactly as she planned, until the officiant asked if anyone wished to say a few words. Vanessa stood, turned toward the crowd, then pointed directly at me, a cruel smile spreading across her face, and the entire wedding fell silent. The silence that followed felt almost unreal. Hundreds of people sat frozen beneath the afternoon sun. Every eye shifted between Vanessa and me. She stood in her white wedding gown holding a microphone, looking exactly like someone about to deliver the final blow. The audience expected entertainment. They expected embarrassment. And according to Vanessa's plan, I was supposed to be the target. She smiled as she looked at the guests. "Before I begin my new life," she said, her voice echoing through the speakers, "there's someone here I think deserves recognition." A few people laughed. Others glanced toward me. I remained seated. Calm, quiet, patient. Vanessa pointed directly in my direction. My ex-husband. More laughter. The groom smiled awkwardly. He clearly thought this was some harmless joke. He had no idea what kind of person he was marrying. "Many of you know Ethan," Vanessa continued. "But what you don't know is how difficult life was during our marriage." There it was, the performance, the carefully rehearsed act. For nearly 2 years she had told variations of the same story. The story where she was the victim. The story where I was the villain. The story that conveniently ignored facts. I watched as several guests nodded sympathetically, They had heard her version, not mine. Vanessa shook her head dramatically. There were times I honestly didn't think I'd ever be free. A collective gasp moved through the crowd. I almost admired her commitment. Almost. The truth was the exact opposite. When she decided she wanted out of the marriage, I never fought her. I never begged. Never threatened. Never tried to trap her. I simply asked for honesty. That was apparently too much, because honesty would have exposed everything. The affairs, the manipulation, the lies. Instead, she built a story. And stories are powerful, especially when people want to believe them. Vanessa lowered her eyes as though holding back tears. I just want everyone here to know how grateful I am to finally have a partner who loves me. The crowd applauded. Marcus stepped forward and kissed her hand. More applause followed. The perfect moment. The perfect image. The perfect illusion. Then Vanessa looked at me again. And I saw something familiar. Cruelty. Pure cruelty. Some people spend their entire lives blaming others for their failures. The crowd became silent. She was no longer speaking generally. She was speaking directly to me. I hope today teaches an important lesson. My jaw tightened slightly. Not from anger. From anticipation. Because she still had no idea. No idea what was coming. No idea what had happened less than 48 hours earlier. No idea that her entire future had already begun collapsing. The guests watched me carefully, waiting for a reaction. Waiting for me to explode. Waiting for me to prove every terrible thing she had said. Instead, I smiled. A small smile. Barely noticeable. But Vanessa noticed. And for the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. The ceremony continued. The officiant resumed speaking. Guests relaxed. Music played softly. Yet beneath the surface, something had changed. Vanessa kept glancing toward me. Again. And again. And again. As though she couldn't understand why I wasn't angry. Why I wasn't humiliated. Why I wasn't leaving. The answer was simple. Because I already knew something she didn't. And knowledge changes everything. I remembered the custody hearing 6 months earlier. The day that nearly broke me. The courtroom had felt colder than usual. The judge sat expressionless. Attorneys shuffled documents. Vanessa arrived dressed like the perfect mother. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Perfect performance. Then she took the stand. And lied. For hours. Lie after lie after lie. She claimed I was absent. She claimed I neglected the children. She claimed I cared more about work than family. Each statement felt like a punch to the chest. Not because they were true. Because they were so completely false. I had attended every school event. Every doctor's appointment. Every soccer game. Every birthday. Every parent meeting. I knew my children's favorite foods. Their fears. Their dreams. The names of their best friends. Meanwhile, Vanessa spent increasing amounts of time chasing a lifestyle she could post online. But appearances can be powerful, and for a while they worked. Then the evidence started appearing. Phone records, messages, school attendance reports, witness statements, financial records, security footage, thousands of tiny pieces, individually insignificant, together devastating. My attorney called it death by facts. The truth didn't arrive dramatically, it arrived one document at a time. One contradiction at a time. One exposed lie at a time. The judge noticed. The court noticed. Even Vanessa's own attorney noticed. Still, she continued lying. Because by then she had convinced herself she was untouchable. The most dangerous people are often the ones who believe their own stories. Eventually, the custody evaluator submitted her report. I still remember the silence that followed. The findings were clear. Painfully clear. The parent providing the most stable environment was me. The parent consistently prioritizing the children's emotional well-being was me. The parent encouraging healthy relationships was me, not Vanessa. Me. That report changed everything. But Vanessa didn't know how much. Not yet. Back at the wedding, I noticed Marcus whisper something to her. She forced a smile. Yet tension had appeared around her eyes. A crack in the mask. Tiny. But visible. I wondered whether she sensed danger. Whether some part of her knew the truth was approaching. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years she had controlled every narrative, every conversation, every perception. Now she was losing control. And she didn't even realize it. The officiant invited everyone to stand. The ceremony moved toward the exchange of vows. Guests smiled. Phones appeared. Cameras recorded. The atmosphere became emotional. Marcus began speaking first. His voice shook with happiness. He talked about love, trust, partnership, building a future together. I listened carefully, not because of what he said, because of what he didn't know. The poor man genuinely believed he was marrying his soulmate. He believed every story Vanessa told. He believed every accusation she made against me. He believed he had rescued her. In another life I might have felt sorry for him. Actually, I already did, because he was standing exactly where I once stood. Completely convinced. Completely blind. Vanessa started her vows next. The guests smiled. Several people wiped tears away. She spoke beautifully. That had always been one of her gifts. She knew exactly what people wanted to hear. She knew how to create emotions, how to shape perception, how to become whoever the audience needed her to be. But while everyone else listened to her words, I watched her eyes. And I noticed something. Fear. Small, barely visible, yet unmistakable. Because every few moments, her gaze returned to the brown envelope resting beside my chair. The same envelope she had ignored when I arrived. The same envelope she now couldn't stop looking at. Good. Let her wonder. Let her worry. Let her imagine. The truth was far worse than anything she could guess. The vows ended. The applause began. The officiant smiled. Before we proceed, he announced, does anyone have anything they wish to say? Most people laughed. It was a ceremonial question. A formality. Nobody ever answered. Nobody ever stood. Nobody ever interrupted. Except this time. I rose slowly from my chair. The applause stopped instantly. A wave of whispers swept through the audience. Vanessa froze. Marcus frowned. The officiant blinked. And every guest turned toward me. For the first time all afternoon, I reached down and picked up the brown envelope. Vanessa's face lost color. Not much, just enough. I took one step forward, then another. The crowd parted instinctively. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was the wind moving through the white roses surrounding the altar. I walked steadily toward the bride and groom, toward the center of the ceremony, toward the moment that would change everything. And when I finally stopped directly in front of them, Vanessa stared at the envelope with absolute terror, because at last she understood. I hadn't come to be humiliated. I had come because the final court ruling had arrived. And what was inside that envelope was about to destroy every lie she had built her new life upon. The moment I stood up, the entire wedding froze. The soft music stopped. The laughter disappeared. Even the birds seemed to fall silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. Vanessa's smile remained on her face for a second longer. Then she noticed something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't embarrassed. And most importantly, I wasn't defeated. I slowly adjusted my suit jacket and stepped into the aisle. The brown envelope remained tucked beneath my arm. A strange feeling swept across the crowd. Confusion. Curiosity. Unease. Marcus frowned as I approached. What is this? He asked. Vanessa crossed her arms. This is exactly what I expected. She turned toward the guests. Everyone, please forgive this interruption. A few people laughed nervously. Vanessa continued. My ex-husband has always had trouble letting go. Several guests nodded. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances. I kept walking. One step. Then another. My dress shoes echoed against the stone pathway leading toward the floral arch. The sunlight illuminated the entire ceremony. White roses. Crystal decorations. Luxury everywhere. The perfect stage. Exactly the stage Vanessa had chosen. Exactly the stage where the truth would finally appear. When I reached the front, I stopped only a few feet from the couple. The crowd held its breath. Vanessa looked directly into my eyes. The confidence was still there, but something else had appeared. A tiny crack. The first sign of uncertainty. What do you want, Ethan? She asked. I smiled politely. You invited me. A few guests laughed. Vanessa's expression tightened. Marcus stepped forward protectively. If you're here to cause trouble, you need to leave. I looked at him. For the first time, I almost felt sorry for him, because he had no idea. No idea who he was marrying. No idea what was coming. No, I said calmly. Karma, I'm actually here to congratulate you. The confusion deepened. Vanessa blinked. Marcus looked suspicious. Several guests exchanged puzzled looks. I slowly lifted the brown envelope, the same envelope I had protected for weeks, the same envelope that contained months of evidence. Months of court hearings, months of patience, months of silence. Vanessa immediately recognized it, and the color drained from her face, only slightly, but enough. I saw it, the first real crack. "What is that?" Marcus asked. Vanessa answered before I could. "It's nothing." I looked at her. "Are you sure?" Her jaw tightened. "It's old paperwork." I nodded slowly. "Interesting." Marcus looked between us. "What paperwork?" Neither of us answered immediately. The tension became unbearable. Every guest leaned forward, waiting, watching, wondering. I opened the envelope. Several legal documents became visible. The text remained unreadable from a distance, but the official court seals were impossible to miss. Suddenly the whispers started. "What is happening? Is that a lawsuit? Those look like court papers." Vanessa's breathing changed. Faster. Shallower. Marcus noticed, and that was the moment his confidence began to disappear. "Vanessa," he said quietly. "What is he talking about?" She forced a smile. "Nothing." But nobody believed it, not even Marcus. I looked toward the audience. Many of them had believed her stories. Many had believed I was a bad father. Many had judged me without ever hearing my side. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was simply tired. Tired of lies. Tired of pretending. Tired of protecting someone who never protected me. So I spoke. Not loudly, just clearly. 3 months ago, I said, the family court reached its final decision. The whispers instantly stopped. Vanessa's eyes widened. Marcus turned toward her. "What decision?" Still she remained silent. I continued. "The court reviewed every piece of evidence, every text message, every financial record, every witness statement, every report, every lie." The crowd stared in complete silence. "The court determined that the children would permanently reside with me." A collective gasp erupted. Several guests covered their mouths. Others looked directly at Vanessa. Marcus blinked repeatedly. "What?" I looked at him. "I was awarded full custody." The words exploded across the ceremony. Shock spread through the audience like wildfire. Vanessa's face turned pale. The grooms slowly stepped away from her. Not far. Just enough. Enough for everyone to notice. Enough for her to notice. And that hurt her more than anything. "No," Vanessa whispered. I calmly raised another document. "Yes." My voice remained steady, controlled, unshaken. The court concluded that repeated manipulation, dishonesty, and interference with parental relationships made shared custody impossible. Marcus stared at her. His entire expression changed. Confusion became concern. Concern became suspicion. Suspicion became fear. The guests could see it happening. Everyone could. Vanessa looked around desperately, searching for support. For someone to defend her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody rescued her. For the first time in years, she was completely alone. Then I revealed the second document, and that's when true panic appeared in her eyes, because she already knew what it was. She knew before I even opened my mouth. She knew because she had spent months trying to prevent it, trying to hide it, trying to delay it, trying to bury it, but the truth had survived. And now it stood directly in front of her, in broad daylight, in front of everyone she cared about. One held up the final document, the document that made her hands begin to shake. And for the first time all afternoon, Vanessa looked terrified. "What did you do?" she whispered. The silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. No one moved. No one spoke. Hundreds of guests stood frozen beneath the afternoon sun as Vanessa stared at the documents trembling in her hands. "What did you do?" she whispered. For the first time in years there was no arrogance in her voice, no superiority, no performance, only fear. I looked at her calmly. "The better question," I replied, "is what did you do?" A murmur spread through the crowd. Marcus slowly turned toward her. His expression had changed completely. The confidence he carried only minutes earlier was gone. Now there was confusion, suspicion, and growing anger. "Vanessa," he said quietly. She didn't answer. Vanessa. Still nothing. Her eyes remained locked on the court documents, the evidence, the judgment, the truth, the same truth she had spent years trying to bury. Finally, Marcus stepped closer. Tell me he's lying. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it again, because she knew the documents carried official court seals, official signatures, official rulings. Facts don't negotiate. Facts don't care about feelings. Facts simply exist. And the facts had finally caught up with her. The guests began whispering louder. Questions spread from row to row. People pulled out phones. Others exchanged uncomfortable looks. The carefully crafted image Vanessa had spent years building was collapsing in real time, one brick at a time. Marcus looked at me, then back at her. Did you lie to me? The question hung in the air. She swallowed hard. I can explain. The moment those words left her mouth, everyone knew the answer. Marcus laughed once. A short, bitter laugh. Not because anything was funny, because he finally understood. The stories, the accusations, the victim narrative, all of it. For months, Vanessa had described me as a monster, a deadbeat, an absent father, a selfish husband. Now Marcus was discovering what the court had already discovered. None of it was true. His face hardened. You told me the children were afraid of him. No response. You told me he abandoned his family. Still nothing. You told me the judge believed you. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. The crowd watched every second. There was nowhere left to hide. Nowhere left to run. The truth had arrived. And it wasn't leaving. I should have felt victorious. I should have enjoyed watching karma work. But strangely, I didn't. Because this was never about revenge. Not really. It was about my children. Always. My children. Every sleepless night. Every court hearing. Every accusation. Every legal bill. Every painful day. I endured it for them. Not for this moment. Not for humiliation. Not for applause. For them. I looked toward the edge of the ceremony grounds. My son and daughter were standing with my sister. Watching. Safe. Protected. Smiling. The sight grounded me immediately. That was the victory. Not the documents. Not the money. Not the embarrassment. Them. Marcus suddenly removed his wedding ring. The crowd gasped. The ceremony had not even finished. Yet everyone understood what was happening. Marcus, Vanessa pleaded. Please. He shook his head. No. Let me explain. You've had months to explain. Tears streamed down her face. For years I had imagined what this moment might feel like. But reality was different. Much different. Because, despite everything she had done, despite every lie, despite every betrayal, despite every attempt to destroy me, part of me still remembered the woman I married. The woman who once sat with me on the floor of our tiny apartment. The woman who once believed in dreams instead of appearances. The woman who once loved our family. That woman seemed very far away now, almost like a stranger. Marcus stepped back. Then another step. Then another. Distance. Physical distance. Emotional distance. Permanent distance. The kind that can never truly be repaired. Vanessa reached for him. He moved away, and that seemed to break something inside her. The realization finally arrived. Not the loss of the wedding. Not the loss of the image. Not even the loss of the relationship. The realization that every decision had consequences. And consequences eventually arrive. Sometimes years later. But they arrive. The guests slowly began leaving their seats. Some avoided eye contact. Others stared openly. Many who once supported Vanessa now looked uncertain. The narrative had changed. The story had changed. The truth changes everything. I picked up the empty envelope. My job here was finished, Vanessa noticed. Ethan. I stopped. Not because I wanted to, because I needed closure. I turned. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, emotionally. The confidence that once filled every room had disappeared. What? I asked. Her voice cracked. Do you hate me? For a moment, the entire world seemed quiet. I considered the question carefully. Years earlier, my answer would have been yes. After the affair. After the lies. After the custody battle. After the endless attacks. Yes. I hated her. But hatred is exhausting. Eventually, you get tired of carrying it. Eventually, you choose peace. I looked directly into her eyes, then gave the most honest answer I could. No. She seemed surprised. I don't hate you. Then why? Because hate means you're still controlling part of my life. I glanced toward my children. They're my life now. Vanessa followed my gaze, and for the first time, she seemed to understand what she had thrown away. Not a marriage. Not a wedding. A family. I nodded once, then turned and walked away, without anger, without celebration, without looking back. The crowd parted as I crossed the garden. The sunlight felt warmer, the air felt lighter. The battle was finally over, and waiting at the end of the path were the two people who mattered most. My son ran first. Dad. My daughter followed seconds later. I knelt down and wrapped both arms around them, holding them tighter than ever before. The future stretched ahead of us, bright, peaceful, free. And as we walked toward the parking lot together, I realized something important. The greatest victories are rarely loud. They don't require revenge. They don't require humiliation. They don't require destruction. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply surviving long enough for the truth to speak for itself. And when it finally does, it speaks louder than any lie ever could. The end.